Good evening, everyone. We are here to reconvene the redistricting committee from last week. I guess the first order of business is to approve the minutes from last week. Does everybody have an opportunity to review those? Yes, sir. Any discussion?
Move to approve the minutes.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Last week, I was absent due to a previous obligation. This week, Mr. Taylor is absent due to previous travel plans that could not be changed. He is out of the state currently, but he did send a letter that he wanted me to read to the committee members. The letter states, "I'm sorry that I cannot attend the meeting tonight due to travel outside the state that was planned prior to the call to reconvene the redistricting committee. In my absence, I would like to let you all know that I do not support changing the school and road board zones from the way they currently are and have been approved by the county commission. I have talked to several members of the school board as well as many members of the community, and no one is in favor of this changing. The school and road board members who are currently in office are doing a fine job and are serving this county very well. We, as a committee, set a precedent by making sure that all 21 county commissioners kept their seats on the county commission, and I believe that we should do the same for the school and road board members. All that said, I do not support any change, and I believe that it should be left alone for now. Sincerely, Johnny Taylor, Election Commissioner." I'm sitting as chair this evening due to Mr. Sandlin's unfortunate bout with kidney stones again. Seems like they have some bad timing, but he's actually been hospitalized again and regrets that he cannot be here. He also wanted to make a brief statement that he was not in support of changing anything at this point. He stated that it shouldn't be a two-way street, and that we as a committee protected everybody's incumbency before, and it was a big deal then, and now it's not, and he doesn't understand that. So that's his general feelings about the issue that we're here to discuss this evening. I was also asked by the committee last week to look at the map number 2 that was initially proposed by Commissioner Robert Stevens and analyze that data to determine what effect it would have, if any, on the existing school and road board members, as well as the election terms and cycles and so on. I've spent a considerable number of hours looking over that map and working through that. And I have prepared a couple of spreadsheets which I feel may help you be able to understand that a little bit better. Let me pass those down. Mr. Curtis, if you could put the Excel spreadsheet up, that's the school board Excel spreadsheet that I emailed today. You may need to zoom in on parts of it to make it a little easier to see. We can change the zoom level to where we can get the left-hand side of the spreadsheet up there. Give the projector just a minute to warm up. The spreadsheet that I've prepared up here is, let's see, my laser may not be working. Yeah, looks like, you got a laser pointer? Do we have a laser pointer? Sorry. Seems though mine must have gone bad on me. In any event, if you look at the first column, labeled column A, at the top of the page, you'll see the names of the existing school board members, and those are arranged in order of their current zone numbers, 1 through 7. The first one listed at the top is Aaron Holliday, who's currently in School Board Zone 1, which is made up of County Commission Districts number 5, 11, and 12. Mr. Holliday currently resides in County Commission District 5. Now, these are prior to the changes taking place January 1, 2012. This is what we currently have and what the previous election cycle was working under. His current term runs from 2010 to 2014. And then if you look down at the next line, we have Mr. Kelly, Grant Kelly, in Zone 2, which is made up of County Commission Districts 1, 2, and 3. He currently resides in 3, and his election term is 2008 to 2012. The next line is Donald Jernigan, who is in current Zone 3, which is made up of County Commission Districts 4, 6, and 7. He resides in 6 at this time. Current election term is 2008 to 2012. The next is Wayne Blair. He's currently in Zone 4, which is made up of County Commission Districts 8, 9, and 10. He resides in 10, and his current election term runs from 2010 to 2014. Terry Hodge, the Vice Chairman of the School Board, is currently in Zone 5, which is made up of County Commission Districts 17, 18, and 21, and he currently resides in 17. I think Mr. Curtis is doing a pretty good job following along with the cursor there. His current election year is 2008 to 2012. Next, we have Mark Burns, who's the chairman of the school board. He currently resides in Zone 6, which is made up of County Commission Districts 13, 15, and 16, and he currently resides in County Commission District 13. His current election term is 2008 to 2012. And last but not least, we have Tim Tackett, who currently resides in Zone 7, which is made up of County Commission Districts 14, 19, and 20. He currently resides in 19, and his election term is currently 2010 to 2014. Now, if you can scroll to the right just a little bit, we're still going to be considering the names as they exist in those columns. So column number 3 there, labeled on the left-hand side where it says Proposed Zone 1, that's going to be Aaron Holliday, and that's going to follow all the way across. Mr. Kelly's going to follow all the way across as well. You're going to change that where we can see it. Thank you. There you go. Okay. And now this is considering the map that was sent to my office for me to look at, and this is how it would affect the school board members. Mr. Holliday at the top is in Proposed Zone 1, which is the same zone that he is currently in. However, due to the population growth in Rutherford County, the County Commission district shifted a little bit, and he moved from, his residence changed from County Commission District 5 to County Commission District 12, which did not affect his incumbency under the current zone lines, because the County Commission districts that make up the current zone include 5, 11, and 12. Zone 1 currently would be up for election again in 2014, so his election cycle would not be changed at all. It would remain unchanged. Then if you move down to Grant Kelly, Mr. Kelly is currently in Zone 2, but under the proposal he would move to Zone 3, which is proposed to be comprised of County Commission Districts 3, 14, and 19. His County Commission District of Residence did not change from District number 3, and his election cycle would remain unchanged as well. He would also run for re-election in 2012 to a 4-year term to end in 2016. There is an issue there which we'll get down to when we go through the rest of these. Mr. Jernigan on the next line is currently in Zone 3. Under the proposed changes, he would move to Zone 5. His Commission District of Residence would not change. It still remains in 6. And his election cycle would remain unchanged as he is up for re-election in 2012 for a 4-year term to expire in 2016. Then when we get to Mr. Blair, Wayne Blair is currently in Zone 4. He would be shifted to Zone 2, and currently Zone 2 is up for re-election in 2012 to 2016. But the problem here is that Mr. Blair was elected in 2010 to a 4-year term that's not to expire until 2014. So we cannot abridge anyone's term who's already been elected to a 4-year term. So there's an issue with his election cycle. Moving down to Terry Hodge, the vice chairman, he's currently in Zone 5. He would be shifted to Zone 7 under the proposal. His county commission district of residence does not change. But because he's moving to Zone 7, Zone 7 has a different election year cycle beginning in 2014 and expiring in 2018. But he was elected in 2008 for his term to expire in 2012. So that would change his election cycle. Moving down to Mark Burns, the chairman, he's currently in Zone 6. He would also be shifted to Zone 7, and his county commission district of residence remains the same under the plan approved by the commission. But under the proposal, by shifting from Zone 6 to Zone 7, that would change his election cycle as well, the same as Mr. Hodges' election cycle. And then if you move on down to Mr. Tackett, Tim Tackett is currently in Zone 7. He would shift to Zone 3, and Zone 3 currently has an election cycle beginning in 2012, expiring in 2016. But Mr. Tackett was elected to a 4-year term in 2010 to expire in 2014. So his election cycle would be changed as well. Basically, the 4 members at the bottom would have affected election cycles. And then turning your attention back to the top where you see Grant Kelly's name in orange, next to that you see he's in proposed Zone 3. If you go down to the bottom where Tim Tackett's name appears in that fuchsia color, he's also in proposed Zone 3. So now you have 2 school board members who are currently residing in the same proposed zone. And they would both be up under the new proposal. Zone 3 is up for re-election in 2012 to 2016. So they would potentially have to run against each other. Even though Mr. Tackett's term doesn't expire until 2014, under the current Zone 7, if he intended to not have a 2-year lapse until he could run again, he would either have to resign in 2012 to run for that seat against Mr. Kelly or something to that effect. I don't know all of the legalities about whether a resignation would actually be required. That's something that we would have to look into based on the school board's rules and regulations and bylaws as well as the private act. But that is the situation that we'd be facing there. Moving down to Terry Hodge, the vice chairman in blue. He's currently in Zone 5 but would be shifted to Zone 7, as would Mark Burns, the chairman, in that magenta color, and he would be shifted from Zone 6 to Zone 7. So you would have another 2 school board members residing in the same proposed zone, and they would be up for re-election under the proposed Zone 7 in 2014 and would potentially have to run against each other. And this is the current chairman and current vice chairman. So those are some of the issues facing the school board. Also, I haven't talked about proposed Zone 4 in the green. Under the proposed Zone 4, there is not currently an incumbent member of the board residing in that area in County Commission Districts 2, 4, or 15.
So who would represent that zone until an election could be held? Would it be unrepresented?
No, the way I understand, there's some overlap there. The individuals who are elected for their terms to expire in 2012, right now, that would be Mr. Kelly, Mr. Jernigan, Mr. Hodge, and Mr. Burns. They would continue to represent their zones as they currently exist until the next election. And that would go for all of the other members as well whose terms don't expire until 2014. They would continue to represent their zones. And I've been told by more than one school board member although the school board member is elected from a particular zone, they really represent the whole county, the county as a whole, for the betterment of the school system, because we are talking about county school systems, not city school systems. Also, we have the same issue in the proposed Zone 6, which is County Commission District 7, 8, and 20. There's not currently a member of the board who resides in any of those county commission districts. At the bottom of the map, I basically just restated what was in the initial left-hand side of the spreadsheet. I just listed the school board members' names, their current zones, and then the 3 county commission districts on the left-hand side of the chart. And they're just in separate columns, 5, 11, and 12. And it's hard to see on this, but in bold print, you'll find the county commission district of their residence. So, for instance, Mr. Holliday is currently in Zone 1, and you'll see that the number 5 there is in bold print. That's the current county commission district in which he resides. Mr. Kelly currently resides in 3, Mr. Jernigan in 6, Mr. Blair in 10, Mr. Hodge in 17, Mr. Burns in 13, Mr. Tackett in 19. And then following along over to the right, you'll see how the colors, I tried to use the kind of like the colors of the rainbow there to go in order: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and the purples were hard to differentiate, sorry. But you can see under the proposed Zone 1, it remains in red, and then all of the next 3 columns show in red what the current county commission districts are that make up the existing Zone 1. But if you follow directly across from Zone 1, you'll see the proposed districts, and you'll see how they're all in different colors, and that shows how the zones were actually, I don't mean to use the word mixed up because that may have a negative connotation, but I don't mean it that way, just how they were reshuffled or rearranged, I guess would maybe be a better way to state that. So that is the issue for the school board.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
When you talk about changes, like how it's going to change an election cycle, is it because of how we're set up on the odd and even years?
We're actually not set up on the odd and even years, but that's that is part of it with the current zone situation.
So then you're going by the numbering system of whatever number they're going to, what cycle that number is on.
Right. That is correct.
Okay. Can those numbers not be changed so that we don't have those issues with their terms?
Yeah.
Are we married to those numbers is what I'm trying to figure out.
I don't know that. I don't know the answer to that. That was,
because we're talking about renumbering anyway. I mean,
that's completely moot and has nothing to do with what we're talking about tonight, as far as what the steering committee is concerned.
I mean, for me, just for me, it relates as we're talking about fruit basket turnover here, and we're assuming a fact that's in place, and so I'm just trying to find out, is that a fact, or is that something that's negotiable or flexible? Is it pliable in any way, or is it rigid? And that's what I'm just trying to figure out.
And I really can't answer that question. When the map was sent to me, I was asked to analyze the data as it exists today. So that's basically what I've done. I do want to mention that whatever was discussed at the steering committee has absolutely nothing to do with this committee this evening, because if this committee this evening changes anything to do, then whatever was discussed at the steering committee will be a completely moot point. So I did not bring that into this analysis at all. So just want to make sure that that's reiterated.
Right, but just the point that, and I don't want to beat a dead horse, but the point I was just trying to make is, if you can renumber under one set of circumstances, can you not renumber under a different set of circumstances that would make some of these issues go away?
I don't know. I mean, that's something to look into.
Well, we got the county attorney back there. You want to direct the question to him?
Jeremy, do you have any insight?
I do not have any. Our office hasn't really looked into the issues precisely of incumbency, et cetera, for this. The election commissioner was kind of charged with looking over the current data. As far as any hypotheticals, we're not prepared to answer that at this point.
If we could, in the interest of time, I'm going to go ahead and pass out the same data that I prepared for the road board.
So what you're saying, though, to summarize is 4 out of the 7 would be affected. Is that correct?
4 out of the 7 would
Current
in fact,
members would be affected.
4 out of 7 would be affected by the election cycle as the numbers and the
Okay.
data exists today.
Okay.
Under the proposal. In addition, 3 out of 4 of those same members who are affected, plus one other whose election cycle is not affected, there's 2 sets of 2 members who would be residing in the same zone and would be forced to, one way or another, run against each other if both of those individuals wanted to remain on the school board. So if we can go ahead and move on to the road board. This chart is going to represent the same exact facts. This is just as it exists for the road board. The current Zone 1 road board member is John Goad, and Zone 1 represents 14, 19, and 20. He resides in 14, and his current election term is 2008 to 2012. Mr. Bratcher is Keith Bratcher is currently the Zone 2 representative, which is comprised of County Commission Districts 1, 2, and 3, and he resides in number 2. His current election term is 2010 to 2014. Randall Bubba Jones is currently representing Zone 3, which is made up of County Commission Districts 4, 6, and 7. He currently resides in District 6, and his election term is currently 2008 to 2012. Richard Seagal currently represents Zone 4, which is made up of Districts 8, 9, and 10. He currently resides in District 8, and his election term is 2010 to 2014. David Rabbit Victory is currently representing Zone 5, which is County Commission Districts 5, 11, and 12. He currently resides in District 11, and his term is from 2010 to 2014. Paul Johnson currently represents Zone 6, which is County Commission Districts 13, 15, and 16, and he resides in District 13. His current election term is 2008 to 2012. Michael V. Anderson currently represents Zone 7, which is County Commission Districts 17, 18, and 21, and he resides in District 18. His current election term is 2008 to 2012. And if you can, go ahead and scoop those columns out of the way like you did before. This is the proposal, and Mr. Goad on the top line would shift out of Zone 1 to the proposed Zone 3, which would be made up of Districts 3, 14, and 19. His County Commission District of Residence did not change under the reapportionment plan. The proposed election year would be 2012 to 2016, which would coincide with what he's currently being elected under. So his election cycle would not, in fact, be affected. Moving down to Keith Bratcher, who is currently in Zone 2. Under the proposal, he would be shifted to Zone 4, which is made up of County Commission Districts 2, 4, and 15. He resides in County Commission District 2, which remains unchanged. And his proposed election year would be 2014 to 2018, and that actually coincides with his current election cycle. Randall Bubba Jones is currently in Zone 3, and he would be shifted to, under the proposal, Zone 5, and his County Commission District of Residence remains number 6. However, his election cycle would shift from 2012 election year to the 2014 election year to expire in 2018. And you'll note that there's also a potential issue there that we'll come back to. Mr. Seagal is currently in Zone 4, and under the proposal, he would be shifted to Zone 6. His County Commission District of Residence remains number 8. However, his election cycle would be shifted from the 2014 to the 2012 cycle, that expires in 2016. If you go down to David Rabbit Victory in the blue, he's currently representing Zone 5. He would be shifted to Zone 1, and he would also have an issue with his election cycle shifting from the 2014 election year to the 2012 election year, expiring in 2016. If you go down to Mr. Johnson, Paul Johnson is currently representing Zone 6. He would be shifted to Zone 7, and his election cycle would remain unchanged. His county commission district of residence is the same as well. I might point out that Mr. Victory's county commission district in the blue, he did reside in 11, and under the reapportionment plan, he was shifted to 12, but that did not make a difference in his zone because the current zone 5 is comprised of 5, 11, and 12. So he would not have shifted out of his zone under the current plan as it has been approved by the full commission prior to us reconvening. Skipping down to Mr. Anderson, last but not least, Michael V. Anderson is currently residing in Zone 7 and under the proposal would be shifted to Zone 5. His county commission district of residence would remain 18, but his election cycle would be affected as well. He would shift from the 2012 election year to the 2014 election year, representing a 2-year gap. Then if you note in the blue, Randall Bubba Jones is shifted into the proposed Zone 5, as was Michael V. Anderson at the bottom. And this would, if the two members wanted to remain on the road board, then they would have to run against each other in some form or fashion. There's no one currently in the proposed Zone 2, which is comprised of county commission districts 9, 10, and 11. And at the bottom of the page, you're going to see, basically, you're going to see the exact same chart that you saw on the other chart that I created for the school board. It shows on the left-hand side what the current zones are for the current members, the current county commission districts that make up those zones down at the bottom. Thank you, Mr. Curtis. And then on the right-hand side, you will see how those numbers, zone number 1 is represented by the red color, and zone 3, of course, is by the yellow, and so on and so forth. And you'll see how those were shifted or rearranged. So that is the information that I was able to compile from the map with which I was presented, which is also the map that I had received as early as November the 7th. I also believe we looked at that map on November the 30th, 2 weeks ago, when I presided as chairman. And I believe this was the same map that was also presented last week in my absence. This was certainly the map that was that this committee voted on to send to me for some analysis, some analysis of the facts and the data as it exists and relates to the elections. I know it's a lot to take in. It's quite confusing. We've had a lot of change in our county commission districts due to our considerable amount of growth this year. I see that there are several members of the school board here. Could you raise your hands, please, if you're a member of the school board? We have 4 members here. Are there 5 members? I'm sorry. Do we have any members of the road board here? Okay. 2 members of the road board are here. I understand the last couple of meetings, the rules were suspended to allow individuals to speak. I see a lot of familiar faces here, and I know everyone has had a lot of valuable input, and I know myself, as well as probably all the other members of this committee, appreciate that. I know that we have not heard from any of the members of the school board or the road board yet, though. So I would suggest that we allow them the same opportunity if someone would.
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. If we could, just in the interest of time, we are getting started a little bit late this evening. If we could, please just limit it to the members of the road board and the school board who have not been here to state their concerns, and try to limit it to about 2 or 3 minutes apiece. I think that would be helpful. So whoever wants to get started. go ahead and stand up, introduce yourself, and let us know what your thoughts are.
I'm Randall Jones. I'm chairman of the County Road Board. I don't quite understand what's going on here. Now, there's one thing about me. Joe Frank Jones is my commission. He knows I speak straight up. The road board and the school board should have had a member on this committee. I don't know what's going on, but my constituents are mad. I don't know how in the world all this got changed around or whatever, but you're not representing my district, which is the largest zone in Rutherford County. There's a whole lot of people out there that don't understand why one group body gets their protection, and two of the same people, the school board and the road board, that are elected the same way 4 years by their constituents in their area, don't have representation on this board. And there could have been a lot of this probably straightened out if there was a couple of people on there on those boards. And I'm not saying the committee didn't understand what was going on in other people's district, but as far as my district, my people are upset. They don't understand it. They don't know why you got to pit incumbents against each other when the county commission does not get the same treatment as we did. And I just ask you to vote this down tonight if it does come up as a vote. Just thinking about other people's constituents in their area. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones.
Hello, my name is Michael Anderson. I'm also on the road board. My concern is, as Mr. Jones is as well, I feel as though it should have been someone from the road board as well as the school board to help come to some of these decisions. Also, I think that everyone should be represented, should have a representative of their community. And I would like to continue to represent my district and my zone. I have spoken with several people in that area. They were very disappointed of what has happened thus far also. And we just want to see each district represented by someone in that area in a fair and just way. And like Mr. Jones, I would appreciate it if you all vote this down. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Mark Burns, chairman of the school board. I want to second everything my colleagues from the road board just said in terms of not having representation on this committee and being troubled by the way that this process is sort of unfolded. I agree that the map number 2 is beautiful. If you're just looking at a geographic way to draw lines, I can see why it's attractive if we were starting with a clean slate, but we're not. We're affecting all sorts of people who are in seats. Not that incumbent protection should be the main goal. I certainly accept that. I do wonder if it's right to protect one set of incumbents and not another. That troubles me a bit. But even beyond that, I challenge any of you to explain to me all of the ramifications of that spreadsheet that Nicole prepared. I've heard her presentation twice, and she's done a very good job, but there are a lot of unanswered questions. Even if you were to say, some of the other concerns that we've raised are not valid enough to get you to vote this down, I don't think any of us know, including the lawyers, exactly what would happen if you vote this plan in, because there's so many moving parts and so many potential consequences from it. So I just urge you to reject this plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burns.
My name is Wayne Blair, also on the school board. I don't know, maybe our comments may be a little premature because we received this information yesterday evening at our work session, and I think most of the details you're just receiving tonight. So I don't know if it might be appropriate for you as a committee to start discussing some of these issues. One in particular, my election cycle for re-election would be 2014, but I am now would be zoned for an election cycle 2012. So, there's 2 years that I would serve basically at an at-large, and then there would be 2 years that I would have to wait to have an opportunity to run for re-election. So there's a lot of details and parameters that I don't understand at this point, and I'm not sure that our board completely understood it last night, and after hearing it for a second time, I still see some issues. So maybe it might be time for the committee to continue to discuss and talk about some of these issues that have come to bear.
I'm Aaron Holliday from the school board, residing in Laverne and representing Zone 1. Last week I was able to speak with you as you allowed some comments from those that were gathered. I'll just echo again, while there certainly are some considerations here for the communities of interest, I think that there are also some very important issues of maintaining incumbency and the value that that brings to the efficiency of government. So just kind of echo the things that that I shared with you last week as well.
Thank you, Mr. Holliday.
Tim Tackett, also on the school board. I think Dr. Burns made a very good point. I think there's some questions here that I think need to be sure that there is an answer to. For example, in my situation, I would be the beneficiary, according to Mr. Reed, our attorney. My cycle goes to 2014. I'm moving into from Zone 7 to Zone 3, something else, where Grant Kelly also would be. That cycle is to be voted in on next year, but according to our attorney, I have to serve a 4-year term, which means I would represent apparently Zone 3 for 2 years, with Mr. Kelly not having an opportunity to run. So I'm a beneficiary of that if it's interpreted that way correctly. But I still don't think it's fair to Mr. Kelly that to occur in that regard. So at the same time, we have 2 members, chairman and vice chair, by being elected multiple times by the communities that they serve, but also by serving those 2 positions. I think it represents the fact that the school board members feel like that they're very valuable members as well. To have them run against each other, I think does nothing but weaken the board. I think that would be very unfortunate. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tackett.
I'm Grant Kelly from the school board. I can echo, if my voice would hold up, what everybody else said, but from the standpoint of being where many of you are, I was on the county commission for 20 years, and including on the county commission and several boards, obviously, and a couple of terms here on the school board. But it's so convoluted that I don't believe anybody can explain this in a way that a person not engineered to in this manner could really could understand it. Certainly, the average taxpayer and citizen can't. And I know that our school board members don't understand it either. So it's something better to take back to the drawing board. I think I don't know if it moved quickly. It just came up as far as to me just recently, but it looked like the final decision was made too quickly without looking at the ramification, and the ramification should have been thrown out there before the vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Okay, just want to make sure that we got an opportunity to hear from those who are potentially affected on the school board and road board.
Madam Chairman, can I ask a question?
Yes, you can.
Originally, when this committee got together, and I've heard the concerns expressed by the road board members and by the school board members, but I'd like to answer the road board members who specifically said about incumbency. When we started this about the fairness of county commission incumbents not facing each other, where road board and school board incumbents, and they're concerned that they're not being treated fairly, didn't we, when we started this process, wasn't one of our goals and rules that we adopted was that we were going to draw our lines, or an attempt to draw all of our lines, county commission lines, where we did not pit one incumbent against each other, as long as we could achieve a reasonable level of compactness, communities of interest, etc., etc., etc. Wasn't that what we established as a group? We all established and voted on that. I believe that passed unanimously. And the fact that that was our number one goal and where we started at turns now into me, I see this new plan as great from just a physical lines being drawn, awareness for the road boards and the school board zones, but yet we could have done that same thing with all the county commission districts had we started with no incumbency as our concern. And we didn't open the group as saying, okay, we're going to protect the county commission incumbents, but we're going to throw the road board and school board out with the bathwater. We said we were going to try to protect all incumbents, and we had some charges from the state that we had to accomplish. And the last meeting we had before we were all brought back together, we voted and sent to the county commission, and they adopted that plan, which had all of this information in it, and it had it all finalized, I thought. Now, I can say, I can see the city of Laverne and their area. I can see their concern for a solid one person guaranteed to be from their representation. I can see, looking at the map, I can see its geography, and that it does have its benefits from looking at it from purely that point of view. But when we start talking about all of the knowns that we have here, and then the possibility of the unknowns, the assumptions that we might have to make, I would say that we are just going back and undoing the work that we had previously done. And I would suggest that we take some more time to look at all of the potential violations, problems, etc., that this new map would cause if we were going to continue to consider adopting it. That we need to know exactly what we're doing and exactly what ramifications totally that it's going to have, and whose rights we're going to step on and whose rights that we're not going to step on. And I expressed this last week or a couple weeks ago, and my friend Commissioner Jordan was almost going to make a motion, but our other motion passed, so it didn't get made, that we might put this on some more time, because there is a lot of concern out there. I've had several people call me, not office holders, some office holders, but most non-office holders, to ask me some details about what we were doing, and I made every attempt to explain it in a concise, short amount of time, yet there were always questions that I was unable to answer because I did not know the answer yet. And they seemed like that different callers had different questions. So I would hope to be able to answer any of my constituents as a member of this committee, as an election commissioner. I would hope to be able to answer all of their questions or get them a quick answer if I couldn't, if we were to adopt any kind of changes to the work that we had already done prior to us meeting again 3 weeks ago.
Thank you.
Ms. Lester, a couple of things. You
Yes.
met with the school board last night, I understand, and presented this plan. And if I'm not mistaken, I want you to correct me right quick if I'm wrong here. I think what you told them was very accurate. On the information that's contained here, I believe you also told them that we were not aware, and I was certainly not aware, of the changes in the election cycles. And I don't know if anybody at this table was, but we did not know that, or I never would have voted the way I voted.
Well, even I didn't know
Right.
at that time.
I understand. I just, and that's why we asked you to look at it.
Right.
That's why we sent it to her. The second thing is that road board member, Mr. Bratcher, was back here somewhere, and he had a previous meeting, and he's back, and I think we ought to give him an opportunity to speak if he wants to.
Sure, absolutely. You want to introduce yourself, Mr. Bratcher?
Absolutely. My name is Keith Bratcher. I represent Zone 2 Road Board, which takes in districts 1, 2, and 3. Last month I came and to the last week to the redistrict committee and spoke a little bit. Also went to the steering committee. With all the things talking about changes you all spoke about in your last week's meeting about really not really changing lines. I guess it was really changing really the whole district and flip-flopping around in some road board zones. And I know, you know, some of my counterparts there, to kind of fix them, kind of puts a couple of them in, put them in the same zones and with one another. But go beyond a little farther than that, and I know you all, this committee doesn't have any control of it. That's why I spoke at the steering committee meeting level. When the commission or the steering committee formed this redistricting committee, and I know you got to try to keep committees to a size where you can be able to get some work done and not have too many people, but it did concern me some that that when they formed this committee, that, you know, the only other two bodies in the county that's elected besides the full commission is the road board and the school board, and that there was no representation from at least one road board or one school board member on this committee. And, you know, in talking to some commissioners, some said, well, you know, we're just going to look at redrawing maybe some lines a little bit for commission districts, so it's really not going to affect the road board and school board. But lo and behold, here we are, and it is affecting us. And I know we can come and speak, and you know, I know this committee's been open about letting us come and speak. But at the same time, there's some decisions they're being made about road board and school board districts. And again, you know, there's commissioners that are on this committee, and of course there's election committee members. So the commissioners on here, they, just like you all talked about, considered all things when you looked at commission district, which is going to affect commissioners. And again, you know, we have no road board or school board members on here and we could really bring out things that's really going to affect us and really have no vote in it. So I just I appreciate your opportunity to let me come and speak and about the change of the districts. And I'll say one other thing, and I'm not putting any blame there, but it just seems like, I guess the biggest thing maybe for the road board, probably more school board than anything, is the district in Laverne, which I represent that district, District 1 on my road board. And I'm in my third term there, and you know, in the last 9 years, I've never had anyone come from Laverne to say, Keith, you know, we have a problem with representation. You don't represent us. You don't, you know, I've never had that, and I don't know whether the school board people are. Of course, you know, it's kind of like the road board for there. It's kind of like some of our districts and members inside the city limits of Murfreesboro. All those roads in Laverne are maintained by the city of Laverne. So that's probably why I did not get any calls, which is like some of our road board members, they probably don't get a lot of calls from the city of Murfreesboro based on, they pretty much take care of those roads inside the city of Murfreesboro. But anyway, I appreciate your time, let me speak, and that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Bratcher.
I just have a couple of things I was going to add.
Sure.
I did sit with OIT this afternoon, and we went over the map scenario 2 and looked if there was any way in the world to try to create protection for incumbency with that layout, with that format, and there just isn't. And that was a tough pill to swallow, because that was not the solution I was wanting, you know, to walk out of there with. You know, the part that I struggle with, and Jimmy, you're right, you know, as a group we did decide to respect incumbency, but for me personally, that was never a priority. And for me personally, I would have been fine had we chosen not to respect incumbency, because I really feel if you have a servant's heart and you want to serve your community, you'll find a way to do that whether you're in an elected position or not. And so that's why it was never one of my top priorities to respect incumbency. And so it feels like we're kind of in a position here where we are having to choose between, are we going to respect the incumbents, or are we going to respect the people that they serve? Because we've consistently had, you know, a group of folks from Laverne show up, you know, asking us again and again to do something for them that we're not willing to do. And we needed to know, and I'm glad Nicole went through this exercise, as, you know, extensive as it was, we needed to know what are the ramifications of making a change. And so we're between a rock and a hard place. You know, I think if we had somebody from the road and school board on this committee, they're probably right. You know, they would have been the ones to say, hey, what does this look like for road and school board now that you've gotten finished with the commission districts? Because otherwise it looks like the county commission is just a bunch of good old boys who protected themselves and they're throwing everybody else under the bus. And that was never anybody's intent. And, you know, we got here accidentally. You know, we got here because we didn't put up the road and school board map and look at that and see how it tied back to the commission districts. And so, you know, the map that we put forward was one that I'm proud of from the standpoint of the one man, one vote, which was the underlying, you know, charge that we had. It was the one man, one vote. You know, the way we had the districts laid out, we had, I don't remember the exact numbers, but we had very low numbers in terms of the variation from one district to another. You know, even if we make the change that was proposed the first time we reconvened to make Wayne districts, you know, Blair contiguous, it was going to skew the numbers, and we were going to have, you know, a couple of districts that were pushing that 5% and, you know, others that were below. We'd still be in the 5%, but we all know the western side of the county is, you know, what's growing. That's the direction the growth is happening in. And so it won't take long at all for those districts to, you know, very quickly become unbalanced. So in absence of a better plan, a clear plan, you know, my direction that I want the committee to go in is basically make no recommended change from the map we sent forward back to the full commission.
Just for clarification, because I felt like some of that was directed at me. At the very beginning, Commissioner McAdoo and I were the only two that voted against
Correct.
21 commission districts. The very first meeting, everyone except for us two voted to maintain 21 commission districts. I remember that, and it's part of the minutes. And McAdoo and I were the only two that voted that might be premature to establish that yet. That there might be a movement out there or someone that wanted to at least look at making less in those districts. Not that we would or wouldn't, but let's remain open. But the majority of the committee voted that we attempt to make it 21 commission districts and stay with 21 commission districts. Also, there's been multiple opportunities to talk about the road board, school board, county commissioner all being in or out of their zone, and we always talk. It was more than once that we said, okay, this zone, it keeps the road board, and you know, there'd be a question asked, is the road board in his zone still? And there were several times where we went and we even talked about, okay, this moves road board commissioner X from his current county commission district to another commission district, but it keeps him in his zone. And we all agreed, okay, well, as long as he kept his zone. And I agree, we never did pull up the map and look at the map like we've done it now, and that might have been an omission that we had. However, if we did, sticking with what we originally established, and that was that we were going to, if we could do what the state charged us to do, and respect all levels of incumbency that will be affected by that map, that was what our priority was going to be. And once again, my priority was to do the best job that we could do with what the state charged us to do. And when the majority of the committee voted to maintain 21 districts, I went along with that. I may have had some problems with that, but I went along with that because that's what the majority of this committee. And I have to say, I've enjoyed this committee. This is one of the most diverse committees that has really, there's been some ideas shared that were different, and yet it's always been open-minded to some sense. Thus, we got back together after we were dismissed to examine this, because we don't want to leave one stone unturned. If we can do a better job, we certainly want to do it. So I've enjoyed serving on it, and it has certainly been interesting from day one, and I think overall we have done a good job examining everything and being open to examining anybody's suggestions that they might have if it had merit. And certainly this new plan has merit, but you know, from what we originally started with, you know, I think if we're going to change this part, we need to go back and change the entire process, because the state's not accepted it yet. And there's no time, and we know we can't do that, and make all the commission districts and all the road board districts and all the school board districts into nice squares that we could still do and stay within our 5% up or down charge.
If I might, Ms. Allen. I appreciate your comments, and I agree with you about most all of what you said. I when I was first informed that I was going to be a member of this committee, I had real reservations about that, what with my position and the ramifications that might be perceived. But I agree with what Jimmy said also. You know, Mr. Evans pointed out that we did discuss in detail every issue that came up, and I think we discussed everything fairly, and we tried to comply with all of the laws and the constitutions and so on that govern this process of redistricting. Personally, I agree with your heart. I didn't really know how I felt about the maintaining the incumbency. I thought if we were going to undertake this huge role that we've been charged with, and the 44% growth in our county, that I didn't know that there was really any way we were going to be able to consider incumbency for every single person. Mm-hmm. And but I quickly saw that was like Mr. Evans pointed out, the majority of the board wanted to consider that, and I'm new to politics. I'll just be real blunt. I really am, and I've never been involved in it before, and so I went with the board's recommendation to consider that. We are in between a rock and a hard place. You said it pretty well. And I also agree with Mr. Evans, and what Mr. Burns said. This recommended map, it's beautiful. It is. I mean, if you look at it, you look at the shapes of the zones compared to the shapes of the current zones, it is. It's beautiful is a good word. It's certainly very compact. It's more, the shapes are more rounded and so on. And I do agree with the concept of potentially making a change in the future if it's going to better the county. I'm just not sure that this is the right time to do that. As I said before, this county commission has the authority to examine the school board and road board zones at any given time. That could be after redistricting is approved. County Commission could go ahead and start looking at that again, or County Commission could wait till after the 2012 elections and see what happens with that, and may choose to look at it at that point, or maybe wait to 2014. I'm just saying that it's something that certainly as a committee member I'm open to the consideration. I just do fear that, Mr. Evans, you probably said it better than I can, that as we set out on this committee, we wanted to we voted and agreed to try to maintain incumbency if there was any reasonable way to comply with the laws and the constitutions in meeting the other requirements of the one man, one vote, and maintaining our percentages plus or minus 5%. So I just wanted to say that. So thank you both.
The book that we all got, and I happen to bring mine tonight, gave us some guidelines and things that we had to follow. And just one tiny thing, and this is where Ms. Allen has pointed this out now about 4 times, including from the commission floor, and she's exactly right. But what the book says and what it's referring to is the incumbency of the commission, because those are the lines we redrawn, and we did fine. Where we messed up, that's a pretty big legal term there. Where we made our mistake, it is good. Was we didn't put it back up on the board for considerable discussion on what followed.
If we erred, that's
we
right.
knew that any 3 districts were going to be, the population was going to be right. That was number 1.
Right.
We had 5 things. Now, I know the numbers, first of all, was number 1. But the 5th thing was respect for incumbency. I remember that quite clearly. But it turned out we reached all 5 of them, and fairly easily, really much quicker than we ever thought we would. But she's right. If we put that map back up and really studied it, we wouldn't have done this right here. This wouldn't have happened. But And like I say, we knew that any 3 districts were going to be relatively equal because each district was equal. So it didn't make any difference how you, and they didn't have to be contiguous. Where we made that, if that was a mistake with the Eagleville Mr. Blair's total school board district, then that was a mistake. Some people don't seem to care; others care passionately about that, whether it should touch or not. But we didn't follow through as far as we should have on that, and now we're in that rock hard place thing she just mentioned.
Yeah, I'd say it wouldn't be called mistake. I'd say choice, because we didn't error, and to say mistake would mean that we committed an error, and that's opinion. Mistake. We just made an incorrect choice, maybe we made a choice that we may not have made had we studied more of the information, because I don't think we did anything wrong. I don't think there was any intention of omitting anything either. I think that it was just
I'd agree with
honest to goodness choice based on what we looked at the time, and we didn't have all of the options. We just had A and B and C, and we didn't get we didn't get D as a choice, and that's why we chose the ones that we chose. So, good knowledge there, Commissioner.
I've got a question. With the scenario 2, Rhonda said you went and spoke with Mr. Curtis all evening. How were the districts, allotted on this? Were they just randomly chose, or did you take what we currently have and combine them and kind of, I'm just curious how the numbers came up.
You mean
the district numbers?
Why put which district and which one?
On each one of these, how the numbers.
You mean the numbering system itself?
Yes.
We didn't number them. We weren't paying attention to the numbers that Mike and I were. That we were looking at just the grouping of the districts and where the incumbents lived, and was there any way to make it so that incumbents were not grouped in districts that put one against another. And because of how the lines fell, and that you were trying to pair up a road and a school board to be able to get 3 commission districts that only had one of each, there just was really no way, without picking up a dot and moving it on the map, there's just no way to make it happen. I was hoping it was just going to be dip over here, raise over here, and we were going to be able to finesse it. There was no finessing to this, no.
And that's probably due to a lot to the fact of, that we have some areas that are a lot more heavily populated than others, and so on. So
That's exactly that.
Anybody else have any other discussion on this?
So are we going to rescind?
Well, here's what and I've asked Mr. Curtis and Mr. Robertson to have Ms. Cook's motion available for us to see, because we really haven't addressed her motion. Ms. Cook made the motion at the last commission meeting that the redistricting committee reconvene for the purpose of studying the county's school board zones and road board zones, among other things, and then making a recommendation to the full Board of Commissioners no later than its regular December 2011 meeting on whether to keep, this is the first part, whether to keep the current zones or modify the zones. So we've gone through this process. We've reconvened. We've studied the school board zones and the road board zones, among other things. So and I think you did a lot of that, among other things, tonight. It sounds like. I had one among other things to discuss that first night that involved changing the county commission district 20 line, and that wasn't a perfect idea either, because then as a couple people pointed out, then you're dividing the heart of Almaville, if you will, into 3 different districts. So it's really hard to I don't think there's a perfect solution, but we have done that. We have examined it, and I think what we need to do now is make a motion on the first part of her motion of whether to keep the current zones or modify the zones. And then based on whatever the committee's recommendation is of that, the second part of her motion was, if this committee recommends a modification, then she asked that this committee submit at least one proposed map to the full Board of Commissioners for their consideration. So her motion was a 2-part motion. So I think we need to address the first part of her motion and determine, number one, whether we want to keep the current zones that have been already approved by the full Board of Commissioners, or modify the zones in any way. So if somebody would like to state that in the form of a motion, I think that's what we need to do.
I'd like, before you get there, I'd like a chance to say something first.
Sure.
I've talked to most all the commissioners since this has happened, and most of you has done stated really the reason we've got to this situation. We'll come up here and lay it out to 21 commissioners, not really what it was going to do to school board and road board. But in talking to all the commissioners took it, or the majority that I've talked to, 90% of them are better, that when we come here, we was trying to land out the 21 commissioners district because we was under a timeline to get it through for the first of the year. And then you was going to come back and had all kind of time to figure out what you need to do on the road board and school board. We wasn't in no one rush to say, hey, it's going to be this way or it's got to be that way. Now that's what most of the commissioners that I, and they wondered why we rushed into this all at once. We come up here and was there, and then the last meeting we say, hey, it's got to be done tonight. We didn't even stop and study what was done. And that's where I think the reason we got where we are. I'm not saying the plan is, I understand Laverne's complaint that wholeheartedly, but I think some studying could have got in done it later, and you could have moved these districts around some that try to satisfy everybody. But
well, I kind of have to disagree a little bit, Mr. Jernigan, because that was that's what I felt like we were doing. I thought that's why we came here, was to study it, to look at, and that's what I thought the motion last week was on Wednesday. I didn't think that we were approving the map to be done with it. Last Wednesday, as a committee, we just said, let's study this, let's see what the ramifications would be. And so I feel like all of the comments have been directed at that we've approved this map and why did we do it and why did we go so fast, because that's really not what happened. I thought that's what we were doing, was studying it, and we were trying to look at all of the little intricacies of it and what would happen if we did adopt this map. Do we need to look at it a little bit further? And so I think that's the process that we're doing, that we were following.
I understand that's the last meeting, but you never brought it up at none of the other meetings we had. Nobody on this here. Why ain't we looking at school board and road board at the same time?
Well,
you never did. If you had, you wouldn't have been where you are now.
You're exactly right.
I mean, if you're honest with yourself.
And you're exactly right, and that's
what I'm saying.
That comment
That's
is
where
exactly right.
That's where we all messed
I'm sorry,
up.
I misunderstood you then. I thought you were talking about this 3 sections of meetings, because I have to agree with Mr. Jordan. We made a mistake. I think it was a mistake not to look at that. Now, did we mean to make the mistake? No. But a lot of times people make mistakes they don't mean to. And so on that note, yes, I do agree with that. I thought you were saying that these last 3 meetings, these last 2 meetings. Okay.
No.
Well, we have to look at that we did, and it was mentioned earlier that we looked at school board members and road board members, that they were going to be in one of the 3 districts they were in, and they would remain. But we didn't really look at the ramifications of how much they were moving. I remember Mr. Kelly, he was right on the border, and we made a...
And we didn't, we just didn't put this map up in the zones. We had the map up with the districts, 50 or 100 times, but we didn't actually have a map of the 3 zones color-coded as a zone so that it would be obvious about the issue with district number 20.
And if we went back 20 years, we would see the land areas, that how much they have changed for each district. And at the time, I know last time, or one of the times I mentioned, when I first moved here, I got the vote over at John Coleman School in Smyrna. And that was a long hike to get there, because I wasn't going to swim across Percy Priest to get there. But But that's the way I'm saying things have changed, and it's something that's got to be looked at. And I think that we ought to, if we do go with the way we are, which it sounds like it is, that we need to come back and after the first of the year reconvene another committee with, not this one necessarily. And I didn't agree that to me it shouldn't have come here to begin with, but here and there. But and bring in the others and bring in citizens of the county to sit in it. We've had those type meetings before in which we get some input from others that aren't, they're sitting at home looking at what's going on around them, and they don't have anything to worry about running for an election or anything like this type thing. They're looking at, pretty much a lot for themselves and the people right around them, just like most of us are. But they look at it a little different, I think, than someone from there, and it may be a selfish thing, but it's good to get that out sometimes, and then you can look and see what people are thinking.
Madam Chairman, before we make any motions or any decisions, just to finish out the conversation, the discussion that we've got, Alderman Broker here, Mayor Mosley, Commissioner Stevens, I think Commissioner Cook is here, just any of the other stakeholders that feel like they can contribute positively to this conversation. I really would like to hear from them if they would like to make a statement.
If we do that, I would just ask that we stick to the same rule that we did for the school board and the road board members. Each person speak once and limit it to about 2-3 minutes apiece.
So I'd like to make that motion then. Okay.
I second.
Any discussion about that, or all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay.
Well, good evening. I think that the reason that we've reached this sticking point tonight is simply because of the way that those zones were numbered last week. Ms. Buchanan asked the question, how did the numbers end up on the proposed map? They were not presented it, and I don't think the committee...
I think Mr. Curtis can explain. He's got some notes about that.
Looking back, where's that? Sorry. On November 4th, we had a phone conversation, and you listed off all the commission districts for the 3 different scenarios that you had, and you list them in order of the zones that you wanted, and that's where they were numbered from.
Okay. Well, if we could change...
And I sent you maps with them on there, and you sent back a word of thanks,
okay,
kind of acknowledging that they were the way you wanted them.
Okay, I must have deleted those.
There was a legend. There was a legend on there showing what numbers they were and everything.
Okay.
Similar to that, yes.
This is the one that I received on November 7th.
I can actually, yeah. I can pull up a copy of what I sent Mr. Stevens if y'all so wish.
If we put Mr. Holliday and Mr. Victory, the Laverne district up there is Zone 1, both of the election years are in 2014. The area where Mr. Bratcher is the road board member, if that remains Zone 2, the school board member will be up for election in 2012, and the road board member will be up for election in 2014. And I passed this out to all the committees right before the meeting. Zone 3 would be Mr. Jernigan's school board zone, and the one that has Mr. Anderson and Mr. Jones for the road board, and both of them would be up in 2012. Zone 4 would remain Mr. Blair's school board zone with the open road board member who would be up for election in 2012. Zone 5 would be Mr. Burns and Mr. Hodge with Mr. Johnson's road board zone. Both of them are already up for election in 2012. Zone 6 is the open school board zone in the southwestern part of the county, and Mr. Stigall's road board zone. He was just elected in 2010, so he wouldn't be up for 2014. The school board would be elected in 2012. And then Zone 7 would remain Mr. Tackett's school board zone, which would include Mr. Kelly, and of course Mr. Gove's road board zone. But if we could study that, I think we would avoid any of these issues of the school board members we talked about having to serve a 2-year term and resign and all this that was talked about last night. If the 3 that were elected last year keep their same zone number, that won't be an issue at all. And then we go back to just simply, do we want to have compact districts that are contiguous, common areas and common sense, or are we going to maintain the status quo? if our standards are going to be the ones that have been outlined here, we're never going to change the school board and road board, ever. And I'm just afraid that if we let this go without further study, it's not going to come back up again for 10 years, and who knows then what the map will look like. But it seems evident tonight the committee wants to make no recommendation, and I would ask that we do reconvene another committee to try to straighten this out. But unfortunately, with all the shackles that the state has on us, the private act, there just isn't an option where we can meet all of those standards exactly. We can't keep every incumbent and have nice looking districts. They're going to be like octopus tentacles all over the county. But I think with this numbering scheme that I passed out to you, I think if we were to number them that way, I think the plan would work. So I don't know that I would hate to just throw it all out the window right now, but if that's what the committee decides to do, I would hope that we would come back and try to look at this again in the future and straighten it out.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens. I know a little past the 2 to 3 minutes, but on this handout, of course, I haven't had an opportunity to verify the information that you handed out. I know you're an attorney and you're pretty thorough, so I trust that it's accurate at this point. But I see here that under the school board, you still have Mr. Burns and Mr. Hodge, who would be against each other in the same zone, as well as Mr. Tackett and Mr. Kelly. And then on the road board side, Mr. Anderson and Mr. Jones would still be in the same zone against each other. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to make sure. Did someone else want to speak? Let's try to keep it to 2 or 3 minutes if we
I'll
can.
be real quick. We came here about 3 separate times, and we asked you to reconsider just looking at the road and school boards, and you did that. So I thank each and every one of you for doing that. Obviously, it's not the you didn't get where we wanted you to go at this point in time, and I'm just going to echo Mr. Stevens' comments that that this doesn't go away, and that you do reconsider. And when you do, I ask that the #1 priority be the people of Rutherford County, and not, while again, as I said last week, certainly there's consideration to incumbency, but I think your #1 consideration needs to be the people of Rutherford County, and I thank you all again.
Thank you. What was your name? I'm sorry.
Tom Broker. I'm sorry.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Did anyone else wish to speak? Ms. Mosley?
Yeah, and I'll be real quick as well. I very much appreciate the positions that y'all are in. All the elected officials, I think from time to time, we're all kind of thrown into situations that sometimes we feel like we're in a spinning ball and can't find a way out. And I just want y'all to know that we very much appreciate the things that y'all have done here, for reconvening, for taking the extra look. I also ask that this not go away. We know that it may not be done. I'm first one to tell you, I know things can't be done tomorrow on certain situations. And that we do appreciate y'all, and nobody's angry at anybody. And nobody's certainly trying to get rid of anybody. Because like I said, you know, I've said again, we've not always had the Wayne Blairs and the Aaron Holidays, and Mr. Burns, I've seen you in action, and you've done a wonderful job as well. And so I just want to say thank you to everyone. And like I said, nobody's mad. We were just, this was an opportunity to redistrict, and that was all we were asking, was for people to look, and let's take a look for the whole county. And it wasn't just about Louisville. But thank y'all for your time.
Thank you for your comments. I appreciate that. But anyone else? Okay.
I'd like to make one comment.
Okay, sure.
I agree. I'd like for us to, or the commission to decide if they want us to come back or make a new committee and continue to study the situation. One possible solution that they could look at is, you know, coming up with a map and maybe making it effective after everyone has the opportunity to go through an election cycle, and then it would become effective after the fact, so that everyone on the school board and the road board zones, they have the opportunity to run for an election, go all the way through an election cycle before, oops, my zone is changing, and you know, that way they would go into it knowing that in 4 years or in 6 years.
Excellent idea.
But something's going to change.
No surprise, but a forecast for any future candidate who may run against an incumbent and win office. They would know that in this year that these are going to change, and that, I don't know how fair it can be, but that's as equitable as I could see a situation becoming. It's a great idea.
Thank you.
Great idea.
Before somebody makes a motion, Mr. Chairman, I just want to comment on one thing, and I can't remember exactly, and maybe some of my fellow commissioners can remember, but the discussion of putting a road board and school board member on this committee, it was there, but I don't believe there was ever a vote taken on that specific point. I'm going to say there was not, and I can be corrected to that. And the last time this was done, I believe it was done entirely by the Election Commission, the last time the redistricting took place.
10 years ago. Yeah.
10 years ago. And I'd recommend that you all do it the next time. But, but at any rate, I'd say that what Commissioner Phillips just said, if they choose to form a new committee, and that'd be the commission's choice, I guess, to do that, I'm not going to vote for it unless there's a road board member on there and a school board member on there. Now, road board members and school board members, you got to volunteer, and it's free, because that's what we all did. We all volunteered. One other thing, and I think this is an important concept, at least to think. I believe we may have jumped far past what the commission perhaps intended. And it's not really our job to decide, well, this person can run against this person. We'll just put them together, and we'll just walk away and just let them fight it out in 2 years or 4 years. And we can do that because we've got Mike Curtis, and we've got Brian Robertson, and we've got pencils and computers, and we can just kind of do what we want and protect ourselves in the process, or not, as we might choose. I tell you who takes care of that. Voters. On election day. And they'll take care of it next time, maybe me, I don't know. But they'll do their job, hopefully. And those are the people that ought to be doing that job. That's my opinion.
Good opinion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, thank you.
Are there any more comments? If there's no more comments, then does someone wish to make a motion on the first part of Ms. Cook's motion, whether we should basically keep the current zones or modify the zones?
I just got one quick question, like I asked before. Do we need to rescind what we done last week?
I don't think so. If you want to pull up the minutes from last week, I believe the motion was simply that this committee chose map number 2 of the 3 maps to send to my office to analyze the data. I don't think there was any approval of that map. That's what the minutes say. Okay.
Is that what they say? If that's what they say, then we're
If that's what it says, that's okay.
Then we're gold.
The motion was to, Commissioner Schaefer moved, seconded by Commissioner Allen, to alter the school board and road board terms with map scenario 2 for 2012 with a report back from the Election Commission on issues to the committee next Wednesday. If this affects any road board member in office now, that they run for 6-year terms in the next election in 2012.
To be
So the motion was to alter the school board and road board terms with map scenario 2. So yes. Yes, that's what I was.
I make a motion.
No, I made the motion last week. Let me do it again. I make the motion to rescind the motion that I made last week.
Did everybody get that?
You got a second right here.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Now that business has taken place, would anyone like to choose the wording of this motion to address the first part of Ms. Cook's?
Couldn't we address it all?
I don't know if it would be proper to go around and take a roll call.
Well, it's kind of a long motion. I'd offer one that said that we take no action now. However, that we recommend to the county commission that this issue not die, and that they choose to reconvene this committee with a couple of extra members, or appoint a brand new committee to study in more depth. It seems that that's the wishes and the way this thing is going.
but that's what I was recommending. Like we talked about way 3 weeks ago. But we got a lot of work. I learned a lot.
Mr. Crawford.
I think that falls outside the parameters of Ms. Cook's motion. I concur with your approach to this, that it's a two-part, it can be a two-part motion, but the reality is you guys are charged with either approving the previously asserted map or choosing to assert another map. And if you choose to do another map, you're supposed to present at least one option.
Okay.
Madam Chairman, question for Mr. Cox.
Strike. I'll pull my motion back.
Okay.
I offer a motion.
If we do this and we just vote to leave the zones the way they are, when that comes up before the full commission tomorrow night, then afterwards, two of us here can come up that we go back in the near future, with another committee, go through steering or whatever, and that we re-examine this sometime early next year, or put it in by March 1st or something like that.
Yes.
We started re-examining.
Yes, sir. Those that are on the county commission may feel free to bring that up. It's just within the power of this board. It's defined right here in this motion, and I don't think that is within the action that this board can take.
I'll make a motion that we keep the current map.
Second.
That's easy.
I love
Simply
that.
stated.
That's a great motion.
There's been a motion to keep the current map as approved by the full county commission, and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
It's a good process.
I personally would like to echo what Mr. Evans said. As I said earlier, I was very apprehensive when I found out I was going to be a member of this committee, and even more so when I was selected as vice chairman. But I thoroughly enjoyed this. I've gotten to know a lot of you all better, not just the members of this committee, but other county commissioners, school board, road board members, and members of the community, people who are concerned about this process. And I do believe that it's been a fair, open process with lots of input from lots of different individuals, and I certainly appreciate everyone's input. So thank you all very much.
I'd like to say, as the citizen at large, I really enjoyed being on this committee, also representing my wonderful county. I love Rutherford County, been here all my life, and again, anytime I get a chance to serve, I'm there. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Any other business?
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
You got lots of seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting's adjourned. Thank you.